Alright guys, what's up Gaming Compute? So much for that app. Or sorry, the microphone attempt. That didn't really work. Um so I'm just back using the built-in recording app on my laptop. No cell phone recording, no uploading. Sorry about the last episode. I had to go in because I thought it was recording the audio through the mic, and it turns out it was only picking up just through the recording software anyways, but not through the mic. So I was kind of at a distance and it was pretty quiet, and I tried to boost the sound a bit, so it's really not going to be the sound quality I was looking for necessarily, but you'll probably have to turn it up at about 20 minutes or so, because it's a separate segment that I kind of fused together. But back in January, we started talking about, as I'm looking at the episodes, the list of past posts, it looks like we were talking about finding customers, outreach, general niche-based outreach, niche-based research, SEO, like an intro to SEO, off-page SEO, brainstorming about agencies, viral content, talking about upcoming episode content. So let's see what else. That's mostly what we got into talking about, were the topics around research and outreach, how to find customers, what to do to find customers, how to optimize your websites. But I wanted to dive more into the practical. What I see as to why most people don't have as much success as they would prefer is because there's maybe not the accountability or the pressure on them, on us, to keep us finding people to outreach to, and actually, big key point, doing the outreach, attempting the calls and the outreach cadence, and kind of strategizing around that. To me, it's a little bit obvious why. Cold calling and discovery calling in general is anxiety provoking, so people don't want to do it. If you've worked for sites where they give you the companies or the leads or the contacts, that's a little bit different because they've been kind of vetted. Someone else kind of had some kind of interaction or deep dive into who you're contacting before you get in touch with them. Ideally, an appointment setter, being a person who kind of like sets up those conversations and schedules them or primes the potential customer for a call. That's nice to have access to someone like that who can just do all that work, so that when you are calling, you have a better chance of somebody opting in. But if you're just starting out, or if you're trying to save, or if you don't want to risk having other people involved, either through Upwork or Fiverr or whatever, doing some of that background work and some of the legwork that kind of gets people onto your calendar for you. If you, for some reason, want to do that or have to, if you're in a position where you have to do that yourself, try to look at the anxiety behind things, because a lot of times it's like, okay, we can feel like we're really making those efforts and we're really making those, spending time and energy. It's like, I'll give an example. So, say if I wanted to work on 2 websites a month for 2 separate clients. And, I'm thinking of something because I did not want to do that during the month of July. But in my mind, I was like, I did actually identify 2 potential people who would be a perfect fit. One of them was on a travel video where some indigenous American tribal groups were being interviewed. Some people from certain reservations were being interviewed, and a tour was being given of the reservation, and they're talking about their culture. And there were some artists that admitted, on their, I make traditional artwork and I have an email address. I don't have a website. And so this travel vlogger posts this whole video. And in my mind, I'm like, how easy would it be to reach out to that person by email and just be like, hey, I make websites, and get a foot in the door. Either make them something for free, do something where it's like, okay, if I make you this one, let me know if you have a couple friends who might need websites as well. I'd like to collab, or like whether it's doing work voluntarily for free, or like trying to get paid, or say, hey, I work by donation only, or whatever that looks like. That would have been a perfect person to reach out to, because they literally don't have something that, ideally, if they just had even like a portfolio page with some general information about how to buy their artwork or their crafts, how to order, contact information, and just some tiles of like photos of, some form of a gallery of like what types of work they have to offer. That would not have been a hard website to set up. They wouldn't even have had to send me art. I could have just I could have pulled screenshots off of that YouTube video, cropped everything, edited them enough so that it, makes sense for the way it would look for a portfolio, and sent them a website of their own work and said, whatever it is, or sent them a blank website and told them, hey, here's a website for you. This is, just upload your stuff or whatever. Or try to collaborate, somehow help them out, or send them a link through Fiverr, Upwork, or some platform where you're already established, where they can hire you, and go through like that protection of the platform. Sending a freebie is always nice. It could be a little awkward to go like too full in, because if they don't really want your help, or if they're like, oh, I do want a website after all, and then they open up like Wix or Squarespace or something on their own, and they're just like, oh, I could just do this myself, or if they find someone else to do it. Or even if you're like wanting to make flyers, business cards, like maybe they don't really want a website, maybe they'll never use it, but even like hard copies of if they have an art show, or like business cards or flyers, for events or whatever. Just so they could get their work out there, because they had nice work, and the only place it's seen is if somebody is on the reservation or wherever they go physically to promote their work. But there's, like, unless somebody has seen it in person, they're not going to know just by stumbling across it that this person's artwork exists. Now, they did have an email address, that's not nothing, but a lot of times, we're so used to ordering online nowadays. That would have been an easy opportunity to reach out to, just like in a way, just because I was consuming content and it just like came up. I came across a different person. I can't remember exactly what the scenario was. I'm kind of blanking on it. But I came across a different scenario, like in real life, where I was like, oh, like if I was really trying to make websites this month, this would have been an ideal outreach opportunity. And I really can't remember what it was, but it was something, because I was like, oh, this is like the second one coming up to me. But I avoided it because I was like, I don't really want to get into websites this month. But that's just an example, and I'm only talking about like putting up basic websites, not even about managing social media or like connecting a bunch of like social media types of accounts to a website, and like maybe building out someone's LinkedIn, or like helping them more in more detail with a lot of their work, so that they can be like established online or have some assistance online. The most recent video or episode I posted was about my frustrations with the Spotify for Podcasters app. All the changes that I've been, kind of reviewing and following up on as they've been changing lately, and kind of my opinions. It's my own personal opinions and experiences with it. But even in posting about that, I kind of noticed, the research that I kind of dove into with the Spotify for Podcasters platform, with them having a YouTube channel, and I was like, ooh, this is a little thin. This is a little bit thin. And then going through the comments and seeing what everybody had to say, and I'm like, I see stuff like that, and I'm like, you could pitch something pretty major, Like, you might get screwed out of your idea or whatever, who knows, but I'm like, okay, you see a major platform like Spotify roll out a podcast app that nobody's happy with. I didn't see one person on there like, ooh, yeah, I love this new app, this is great. Everyone was like, why can't I record? Why can't I post? Like, what happened to all these features? Why can't we use the app anymore? Why do we have to use laptops or desktops now? Like, nobody wants to, I feel like that's a step backwards. But then when I, went on their YouTube channel, and I was like, they really don't have a lot of content. They don't have a lot of tutorials. It's very polished, but it's not, I don't feel like they have a lot of content that's really relevant or helpful to the podcaster. Unlike some platforms like HubSpot, for example, like you can learn how to build blogs and how to do like all this different cool stuff off of HubSpot. If you compare their YouTube channel to Spotify for Podcasters' YouTube channel, you're like, I wouldn't expect a major platform to be that thin on YouTube. I was pretty shocked. I think they have like 30-something pieces of content. Maybe about a third of them are shorts. They've got maybe one or two long-form, videos. And a lot of videos that are like short, little like few-minute, clips that are just like kind of basically about their updates sometimes, but not fully, not informative enough that like that's where I thought to look when I was having problems with it. I never even thought to look there because I'm like, they don't even talk about their own YouTube channel. Now they do promote their they're I think they're gonna start doing more live like master classes and then like maybe archiving them on their YouTube channel. That's what I'm assuming is gonna happen. I know TikTok does something like that where they have like these Q&A sessions, but they don't really do a very good job live of getting to everybody's questions. But they kind of roll out some kind of on theme, on season, brainstorm kind of session ideas and things of what people can kind of start, gravitating towards with like content creation and, you know, teaching people how to kind of leverage that. And, for TikTok, for an e-commerce store and things like that, I feel like they do kind of good with that. I mean, it's TikTok shop and all that is a little messy, in my opinion, because there's so many restrictions and ways to get banned or not make money when you think you're gonna make money, and then there's different ways where your money just doesn't get to your pocket because you got flagged for whatever reason, and there's no real way of like reversing those processes once you violated something accidentally, even if it's not a really major thing. If you don't get it resolved fast enough in the right way, you only get like maybe 2 to 3 tries, and then you can't even like use your account anymore after that point. So like it's kind of like a done deal, regardless of if you were in the right or not. They just don't even look at it anymore. But I see sites like that where I'm like, okay, these are problems that if I'm facing the problems just from generally trying to review something, I know people are facing these problems when they're trying to like make it their income. But I look at the problems that I see and I'm like, there are definitely opportunities in there to reach out to people in places where, you could potentially land yourself some kind of business. Now, with major platforms, I'm not going to discourage people from reaching out to them, but I mean, there's so many people involved, but you could probably scoot your way into a door somewhere. I mean, you could probably figure it out these days. Contact information is online. You can figure out how to reach out. Now, the only thing I say is, if you start pitching ideas to someone and then they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, what stops a big platform with all these staff and all these other creatives around them? They could just put someone else, like, hey, Joe from floor 2, like, come up to floor 3 and start working on this. We want you to start working on this now, build a team and just get it done. And what's stopping a major corporation from just taking your idea and running with it? So that's the only part that I would say I don't really know how, you know, how you would kind of protect yourself on that end. But I do think you can get yourself into doors with content creators, with other creatives. I hear it all the time. Like, I think it was, I don't know if it was a Meet Kevin video with finance or some other video with I don't know, some content creator where they were saying like, oh, we're really trying to find someone to like, we need a team of people to work on this now. Like, and you can find jobs. You can find jobs on these people's, like some people are actually talking about what they're trying to, find workers for. And if you're trying to be in this space, it's like you could work for probably one of the top, some of these top YouTube content creators if you just, I'm not saying sit around all day and wait for them to say that they're looking for someone, but, I think it was Caleb Hammer. I think both. I think Caleb Hammer mentioned something. I can't recall what it was, but he did mention he's in some kind of process of expansion. And Meet Kevin mentioned that on his website he has like a jobs tab where you can apply for jobs and internships through him to work for him. And I'm like, these are other avenues that people can take. Like, it's not exactly you getting your own customers, but I mean, it's a way that you can get work. Um, and if that's the goal, is to get customers or to get work, those are ways to do it. Um, um, yeah, those are some pretty good ways to kind of go about trying to get your foot in the door. So you could either do it like, okay, if you're trying to get your own people, get your own customers, you know, you have to make the calls. Like, it's not going to happen if you don't make calls. And your likelihood of landing customers is going to be higher the more calls you make. And you want to strategize your calls to call the people who you want. Like, it depends what, like, if there's different categories of types of people you're calling, you want to prioritize the category that you're looking for. So maybe call those people a little more often. Maybe call them twice a day. Maybe, have a little more strategy around trying to contact them, at least to the point that either you get blocked or you get in touch and they hang up on you. Those are like worst case scenarios, but at least till you get that no, making the contact, or making the contact attempts. Because also nowadays, who answers their phone? Unless it's for work, I don't answer my phone. Unless I'm literally looking at my phone and I see a name that pops up and I'm not busy and I'm in a space where I can actually talk and I see their name and I feel like picking up, that's the only time I ever pick up my phone. Like, usually I let it go to voicemail if I see it because I'm usually doing something else. Or, I mean, my phone is on Do Not Disturb all but like 30 minutes of the day. Usually from like around noon to 12:30, my phone is not on Do Not Disturb. It might actually be on Do Not Disturb now. I think I've put it on Do Not Disturb like pretty much eternally. Like, I go in and look at messages or missed calls on my time when I feel like it, and then I'll communicate back that way after the fact. But yeah, I don't even really spend a lot of time, you know, with some of these kind of situations, like with people calling me, and I mean, it's different if it's like business related stuff, you know, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people blend that business and personal life, and it's harder and harder to get people on the phone nowadays. So there's a lot of outreach content from, how to outreach through social media, which is a good option for people to consider taking. I think I'll talk about that next. I don't know if I want to talk about that all right now, but just in general, I would say the anxiety around calls is usually why people don't make calls. They don't want that negative experience of someone saying no, or someone yelling at them, or someone hanging up on them, or someone kind of maybe playing around on the phone with them and like kind of acting out or making, you know, like kind of like not a prank call because you're calling them, but it's like kind of like trying to prank or act like, oh, like I'm an old person. What? I cannot hear you. Like, and somebody kind of making up some kind of character or something, and you're just like, dude, I'm just trying to do business. But those things happen. That's the name of the game. That's how it works. You gotta be able to brush that stuff off. And yeah, it's gonna affect you. You just have to have a way of coping with it. And it's easy to look at all those reasons. And sometimes you do get burned, sometimes you do get your feelings hurt by somebody doing or saying something insensitive or kind of not treating things seriously. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people I've been yelled at, you know, yelled at by for calling, or someone trying to put me in my place for calling them when they're busy, or someone, all those things I mentioned are things that I've experienced firsthand, where I've called kind of nervous, hoping that they pick up, but halfway hoping that they don't, but knowing that I need them to pick up. So at least we can see what happens on the call, and it doesn't really go my way. But that's not the majority. The majority of calls, I'd say the majority of calls don't get picked up. And of the ones that do get picked up, people are pretty polite if you're straight to the point, if you're honest, if you're trying to offer them value right up front. You don't have a long pitch or some crazy script where you're like explaining some weird thing that people don't understand what you're saying. They don't know why you're calling them. Think about most of the calls people get that are cold calls. It's people trying to ask them to either sign up for something where maybe it's like financial, like loans, creditors, those types of people, or it's someone who is just calling, who knows why. Debt collectors, all kinds of just people cold calling about all kinds of stuff that are scammy or not even relevant. But if you're calling specifically business related, for some method to try to help someone improve their money situation, improve their sales, and you can help them with that, and that's why you're calling, you need to be able to express that, and they need to be able to hear it and trust that you can help them, and you need to know how to answer their questions, and you need to know what their needs are. And I wouldn't recommend just calling people if you don't have any background on them whatsoever. That's why I said, there's those discovery calls, the research you do beforehand. There's a process to it. Basically, it overall really takes a lot of getting out of one's head. Just, having the list in order of who you're gonna call and what you're gonna say, and just making the calls. And I mean, emotions wise, I'm not the kind of person who's like ignore your emotions. You might have to deal with it on the spot and take a little break if you had like a bad call. But that's not going to be like all day, every day. Don't treat every day, all day, every call like it's a bad one or going to be a bad one. Those happen, but it's probably not even every day, and it's probably not even every other day. But those are the ones, some reason, that stick. Even if you're making a whole lot of calls, for some reason, it's the negative ones that stick. Our minds want to protect us, and they also want to tell us what is, what are potential additional things to look out for, even if we've never firsthand experienced them. Just kind of knowing, maybe how you feel when people call you, even if it's work related or not, how you might feel, how you might address, the way you feel. Just recognizing like how you might feel is pretty it can be pretty eye-opening to help you, like you want to connect with it, but you want to problem solve it and be able to cope with it. Like, of course, if it's way too stressful for you, like if you're commission only, it's going to be stressful, because you need the calls to work out the way that it's going to be in your favor. I mean, if you only get paid based on people opting in, you really have to optimize, making the calls so that you have potentially more people answering so that more people will potentially opt in. Or if you're working for a company that has like a certain amount of numbers you need to hit, you have to figure out how to do that. Sometimes it's not possible, but if you're somewhere where, there's a site where everyone is mostly on task, then you might assume that it's possible for multiple people to be able to kind of meet the demands. Therefore, for yourself, it should be possible to meet those demands. If you have to get advice from people, if you have to get extra support from people, knowing how to do that and when is the right timing. But overall, what I really see is that people don't. It's not so much that they don't get the customers because they're not skilled or anything. It's more so that they're not making the calls, or they're not able to kind of analyze and adjust what they need to do to keep people on the call when they get them. Like maybe the approach, the introduction isn't good. I mean, think about, put yourself in another person's shoes when you're calling them. Say you're calling someone who owns a startup. You notice that they have a startup, they're selling some kind of app, and their app is only on Instagram. They've only got an Instagram account with a link in the bio, maybe 2 or 3 YouTube shorts that are ads. Not a whole ton of footage of people using the app on Instagram, which, by the way, is a good site for picture and video short form content. It's the type of platform where people just go on there and scroll. So if they have no audience, if they have no followers, they're not following anyone, there's no engagement on Instagram, guys, it's really going to be hard, for them to get where they're trying to go. That sounds so limited, right? So if that's someone you're reaching out to, and you know for a fact that you're like, okay, this person needs to be on more platforms, they need more content posted, I can post that content, I can create, edit, and post content, I can, write the SEO and all the tags and all the, like, everything, I know how to optimize for every platform that I'm gonna connect them to. I know how to integrate all of the content, how to schedule posts and do all this stuff. And you see that you can help this person, and you know exactly how, like, what the strategy is that you use. If you get this person on the phone, hello, my name is so and so, whatever your name is, and just get straight into it. I'm calling because I offer whatever I'm offering, I think I made that too broad of an example, but say if you're in social media management, you help people expand on different platforms, you help startups to expand on different platforms and get more followers, a bigger audience, more eyes, more optimized content for higher levels of traffic. Of course, they want conversions. You can't really promise conversions, but you might be able to promise conversions, depending on their product or what you've done in the past. You might have proof that you can prove conversions, that you can get conversions, but you might not. You might just be able to improve their traffic. So You could tell them, that your goal is to improve the traffic with the potential to increase conversions. I could get you, I could 100x your traffic in 3 weeks, whatever that looks like. I was reviewing, like saying first, I was reviewing your platform, all this kind of stuff. Like just kind of telling them what you're there for. It doesn't have to be like some long thing. I'd say choose maybe two of those sentences, the most important ones, or something even more grabbing. You want to tell them what they need to hear, but it needs to be honest and very honest. So you don't want to make false promises. You don't want to give false hope, but you want to tell them, hey, I saw that you only have Instagram. You only have 3 posts. You only have your link in the description. You're selling one product. You only have 2 ads. 3 posts. One of them is just maybe like a reel that's like a screenshot of someone scrolling through the app with some background music, and then maybe 2 ads. One is an ad about how somebody's using their app, and then the other is an ad about maybe a tutorial about the benefits of it or whatever. And who's their customer base? How knowledgeable are you of those people? What do you know about what they want and what they need, about your potential, the person you're outreaching to, this startup that you're reaching out to? What do you know about their customer base? Being able to talk to them about those things and what you can offer and what they don't have. Being able to offer samples of work through your own portfolio, maybe even a trial of some kind. Don't ever make the trials too much at a disadvantage for yourself. Because if you think about it, if you offer like 3 trials every week and you're just working for free for 3 people who are going to decline, or if they do decline, figuring out why. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just the calling, but what you say on the phone, how you grab their attention. You need to grab their attention within like 1 or 2 sentences. Because if they don't know why you're calling, think about what's important. Is where you're calling from important? If nobody knows the name of your company. If I'm calling you from metallicamusic.com or whatever, and I want to edit your music videos, I mean, maybe people might assume I'm connected with a band like Metallica, but if I'm calling from, some no-name brand, what are people going to think? If I'm calling from metaloffice.com and I edit metal musicians' music videos and content, nobody knows what that is, so why waste that much time diving into all what you do and all the background and all that? If they don't ask you, just kind of tell them what you noticed about their, what you did when you were researching and how you can help them. I help people with ABC. I noticed that your site doesn't have this, that. We've noticed that people who add those things have, success at this percentage, real numbers, Unless a person doesn't have money or goes into your portfolio and doesn't like what they see, or talks to you later and doesn't really like what they hear, or decides, I can step it up by myself and just do it myself. I mean, what is the disadvantage of them hiring you? If you already know what you're doing, you're able to prove work, you have success stories, you have reviews, positive reviews. I don't really see many reasons as to why someone wouldn't hire you unless they just can't afford it. And if affordability is the issue, or if they say no, you might want to know why. Hey, yeah, I hear that you're declining, but is it because of the cost or the timing, or try to figure out why they're declining. Maybe you called them and you know, their 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 adult daughter just gave birth to a newborn, and it's their grandchild, and they literally have that grandchild for the very first time in their arms, and they happen to take your call. It's like they're not trying to talk to you; they're trying to spend time quality with their family. They're not trying to, they're trying to be in the moment with this newborn and connect with this baby. They're not trying to talk to you about their business, and what they can afford and what their budget is and all this. So it might be timing. It might be they just don't understand what you're saying. It's not clear. You didn't grab their attention. But if they do give you that space to kind of understand why they're declining, see if there's an offer that you can not not upsell but downsell. Like, okay, if it's an expense thing, how about I do, however many hours free, I'll give you half off, buy one get one free. you know if I'm doing 30-second video ads for your company, I'll give you 2 ads for the price of one. I'll give you 3 ads, I'll give you 4 ads for the price of one. um um I mean, you have flexibility if it's your own thing. If you're working for someone else, you can't just change up the the sales model, per person probably. But if you're working for yourself, you can kind of be pretty flexible. You just don't want to be, get yourself into a hole where you're doing a whole bunch of free work and the time is cutting into being able to make calls. Because in addition to making calls, you still have to do the work. So, and some customers might not be subscription based monthly income from them. It might just be a one-time gig. So once that gig is over, even if it pays $1,500, $5,000, whatever it pays, once it's done, it's done. You might not ever hear from that person again. You might hear from them again based on like per project, but you might not ever hear from them again. So that's those are kind of the major differences that I've noticed. As far as sales calls are concerned, having to make the call, doing it, having a strategy behind it, having a strategy behind what their response is. So if they say yes, what do I say next? If they say no, what do I say next? If they say maybe, if they ask more questions, what do I say next? You need to move them to the next phase, which is either a yes, a no, or a schedule and talk about it later. And yeses don't always mean yes. A no, don't call me back again, is pretty much, don't bother that person ever again. Maybe no, not right now, could potentially mean, okay, let me call you back in a week or two and just check and see how things are going. Let it marinate a bit, see if they're able to kind of take more time. Depending how much you're charging, depending on a person's budget, depending how you sound on the phone, you're a complete stranger to these people. And if they can't just quickly pull you up online and like find your material and find it to be trustworthy, they might not really engage. They might engage with it though. It really just depends. A lot of it really just depends. So I mean, those would be, I think, as far as basics, that's kind of the basics that I've gathered. Um, is once you get to a point where you know the product, you know what you're doing, you know what you can offer. That's the easiest part. Now you just have to be able to, have a response for everybody's questions. If they have questions and you want to be able to appeal to them early on, you don't want to, they answer the phone and you're telling them the name of your .com and we've been established for 6.5 years and I've served 18 customers per blah blah blah. Like nobody cares about all that. Like they're gonna hang up on you. You got to tell them why you're calling and what you can do for them. That's all they want to know. People are in a fast pace these days. Even if you're offering something free, people don't want to hear your calls, unless it's really at benefit to them. That's how the market works. Americans in general, we're trained to, think about that gratification. What am I getting if I buy this? I want these new headphones because even if I have other headphones, these are better than the other ones. I want to purchase this service because it'll help me for XYZ reasons. There's something I'm not getting, there's something I'm lacking, therefore I'm opting into this kind of service for support, for help. You have to think about the other end, not just I need to make 100 calls, but when these people answer, what is it about them specifically that I can help them with? And also, not bashing them and being like, oh, I saw your site. It doesn't look that good. It's kind of outdated. Don't offend them. They may have been working hard on everything for so long. You don't want to offend them, and you don't want to what do you call it? When you're sucking up to people, you don't want to suck up to people and false flattery and all that. You want to give credit where credit is due. Point out some positive stuff. Talk to them about numbers. Talk to them about money if they're comfortable with that. You don't have, again, that gets to be a tricky situation because you don't want to be making promises. Like if these people have a crappy product, say if you're trying to help a startup with an app and you've never tried the app, you've never used the app, and you're trying to help them promote it, and then they start getting more traffic, and then they start getting some sales, but then the sales, get refunded because the app doesn't work, or it doesn't do what it was supposed to do, or it's faulty, or it's not powerful enough, or it's too slow, or whatever it is. People feel like paying for the app isn't worth it. And so maybe you got them a bunch of customers, but the product sucks. I mean, you can't be trying to promise people conversions and money if their product isn't good. If their website, if their e-commerce site, if the payment gateway is some strange payment gateway where people feel like they're going to get scammed if they put their money into it, if it's not like PayPal or something that people understand and it's some weird pay thing that converts your money into crypto or some strange situation, that might be the barrier between them getting actual sales. You can do all you need to do on your end to get them traffic or whatever your role is trying to promote them, but you can't promise them how much money they're going to make unless you know how solid their product is or their service is. If it's not beneficial, if people don't have good reviews, if people are annoyed by it, if people don't want it, or people don't understand what it is, your role might need to be, if it's within a scope that you can help them, with. You need to kind of point them in a direction of a way to kind of resolve that issue, whatever it is that's the barrier for them to actually getting the money into their wallet. Um, maybe there's not a big enough profit margin. Um, People with e-commerce, this is pretty common. People don't recognize the subscription fees for your store to be open, the hosting, how often, maybe once a year to every 2 to 3 years, or how often you're paying for your domain name. Some domain names are pretty expensive to have to pay every year or whatever. Um, mm, People might not factor in, taxes, import, export, prices, fees, time, distance, shipping materials, packing materials, um, shipping and handling times, distances when they're selling an item, how much the product costs for them to purchase it. And, people might not calculate all that. They might not factor it all in, and they might not be making a profit. And so if you say, hey, I can, you know, if you're making $10 a day, I can make you $100 a day. It's like, well, I can't promise you that. If it's an issue of, you know, how many how many products do you have to sell to make $100 a day? If you're getting like 50 cents per product, that means you have to somehow help these people sell 200 per day, and that's not counting all the other expenses. So you probably have to sell over 200 a day to try to get that many, to cover all the expenses. Like, some people just aren't good with the math, so you can't really promise them numbers as far as how much they're going to make. It's a little easier to promise traffic, not really, but it's something that you can kind of test out a little bit easier. Like, hey, I've worked with like 18 sites like yours. Every single one of them, I use this strategy, and the person at the least, 10x, the person at the, the one person had 10x, everyone else on average was between 20 and 25x, of traffic increases. I mean, if you have those numbers, you have those numbers. If you don't have the numbers, you got to get the numbers. And if you can't get those numbers, then you kind of know you can't promise that. I don't know. I wouldn't really recommend early on with projects trying to promise income, because it's tricky. That's not within your control. Like, if you know all the ins and outs of what they're doing and what they're using, and you can like calculate everything, you can maybe have more of a role in that, and like understanding and like talking about it with them. But I mean, there's an ad spend budget, advertising budgets, all these kind of things that startups have to budget for. And I'm just talking basics. I'm not even talking about how they're paying their staff and all this other stuff. So I'm just talking just one individual e-commerce website, one person selling their artwork, one person selling whatever, like an app or some kind of service that they're offering. The more people involved, the more moving parts involved. It, it's a lot to work with, which can be good, but the reason why they're not making sales might not have anything to do with something that you can help, if they're not willing to change any of those other things. And if you're not consulting, if you're not in a consulting role, or they're not hiring you, and you're not like an agency that has different connections for people to kind of dive into these different areas and kind of tweak all those parts of their business, or at least offer advice. You can't necessarily be like the jack of all trades and try to tell them every single thing that they can fix and how they can do it. Like, maybe, like, if you niche down completely and you're only working on certain types of sites, you'll definitely see certain types of trends. But if you're pretty broad and you're working for like beauty companies and people who are authors and people who are selling t-shirts or hats or like clothing or like apparel lines, sports equipment, whatever it may be, you know, you may need to figure out kind of how to help, you know, in general, versus if you're seeing like just, you know, you're only working with a small segment of the population. You know, you start seeing certain trends and you know certain, I don't know, like you might know more about the manufacturing, you might know more about, you know, where most people are getting the cheapest, you know, items to drop ship or whatever. Like, you might know more about that, if it's just one area. But if you're working for like multiple types of companies, it's going to be harder and harder to know more details about multiple companies. Like, it's possible to some extent, but the broader your situation is, the harder it might the harder it might be. And Trent Dressel has probably some of the, I don't know if it's the best, but probably some of the most viral content out there, other than like people like Tech is the New Black and Tech Back Trey and some other people. But Trent Dressel has probably the most content out there from what I've seen. That's pretty helpful with people talking about, you know, sales techniques, scripts that he uses, calls, you know, tips and tricks. Yeah, you really just gotta stay out of your head about some of it. You know, it just depends what part of the calling you're in. You know, if you're trying to land customers, it might take more than one call. You know, if it's a bigger if it's a bigger ticket sale, you know, people might not want to just opt in right away. They might not be able to. You know, they're gonna want to know more, so you're gonna want to break it down into phases. You know, let's talk about this. You know, on another call, we're gonna have a discussion about this next topic that'll get things to the next phase. And depending who you're talking to, and you know, if it's a company you're reaching out to, you know, the person you're talking to might not really know or have decision making power, or they might not know like the company's budget or have anything to do with making those decisions. So that's just kind of how it looks, on the surface. I'm not gonna go into like a whole lot of like, what do you call it, like scripts and things. I'm more interested in the psychology behind things. And if you're kind of attuned to how people talk on the phone, especially, and do they mean what they say, or when they respond, what does it mean when they say this or that? You know, just learning how to decipher, you know, what's going on that call. And there's someone else I wanted to talk about real quick too that I blanking on who it was. It might not come to me. Okay, so this last one I've talked about before. Tyson 4D. Tyson 4D probably has the most comprehensive platform for free educational content that people can use as tutorials to implement into their sales work. So Trent Dressel focuses more on software sales. Tyson 4D focuses more on freelance copywriting. But that can be you can kind of interchange a lot of like digital marketing and social media management types of tasks. You can be flexible with it. I would say a lot of what they say, either one of them, it applies somewhere along the line. It's just you'd have to tweak it for specifically what you're doing. For people who are more on the freelance end, they're not maybe working for a company or corporation or a startup, or they're trying to start their own thing. They're starting from scratch, or they're just trying to get customers, even if they already have like a platform established or something already established. One thing that they need to do is, of course, again, make the calls. I know earlier on, Tyson 4D was recommending people to use like Loom videos, make a tailored Loom video for who you're outreaching to, outreach through Instagram. I can't remember if Trent Dressel talked about outreach through LinkedIn. I know usually email is common. LinkedIn, Instagram, these different types of platforms, it might just kind of depend on what you're doing. Depending what you're doing, there may or may not be like an appropriateness or an inappropriateness to how you reach out. I don't know if I would recommend people getting like Apollo.io or some type of a connection like that for like a CRM where you can like search people, search companies, do more networking. I mean, LinkedIn has one, but theirs costs a fortune. Their premium or whatever their package is called, it costs a lot. And I think it's gone up in cost. But you also want to use a platform that other people are on. You don't want to use something so obscure just because it's free or cheap, that you can't like find who you're looking for or accurate outreach information, because that's just going to waste your time and energy. It really depends what I mean. It's a little hard to kind of generalize like I'm doing, but Tyson 4D has some good content out there too. I wouldn't avoid checking his stuff out. They've had a new update during the month of July, earlier in July, to the Discord. Xenos is running it with Tyson. They're expanding. They're kind of almost gamifying their Discord, so that for the people who, once they start getting a sale, they can post. And there's different tiers where, okay, if you reach that goal of getting your first customer and you're not green anymore, and once you get to like an intermediate stage, once you get to intermediate, like what does that look like? So once you're on that intermediate stage, Just being able to be in that stage. And I think you can help other people. You can review other people's copy. There are different features at the different like levels, so you can kind of level up within that Discord platform. It kind of helps as a community for motivation. I really like that. I really think that's cool. And it's free to use, as far as I know. You just have to get verified and have an account. And I think you have to be able to show your work, but copywriting, I don't know what I feel about copywriting anymore, because I'm not so much in that space, and I've kind of stopped checking my emails since like summer. Like my personal emails, I kind of just don't check my personal emails anymore. Like for work, I check them. For my, side hustle, projects and things, I check those emails occasionally. Work emails I check every day at work. Side hustle related emails, I check them pretty much when I'm working on analytics and things, which is from time to time. It's not like every single day. And then my personal emails, I mean, my brother is probably the only person I hear from via email. And then I have a few people who have my email address who, it's like if they lose their phone or something. But I don't really email hardly but one person. That's just my brother. So I really don't check it that much. I check to see if he messages me, but that's not like every day. And then other than that, unless I like buy something like online or a ticket or something for a concert or something like that, like for like the confirmation number or like some kind of trip or something where they're gonna send me the information to my email, that's the only reason I really check emails nowadays. Otherwise, I'll check Instagram. I'll check. I talked to maybe like 3 people on Facebook, and then otherwise it's Instagram or text, and that's just me. I don't know if everybody's kind of shifted that way. I don't really deal with TikTok, not unless somebody sends me something via text that they want me to watch, and then I'll check it out. Maybe I'll have to download the app and watch it, and then I'll delete the app again. So I don't really mess with TikTok. It's too much of a time waster for me. The only time I really deal with TikTok is for like projects. I don't like it for entertainment purposes. I like it for projects and for promotion and for ads and for e-commerce. I don't really like TikTok for browsing and scrolling and like watching short form clips after clip after clip after clip. And so I'm kind of gravitating a little bit more, hopefully, I want to, towards Instagram and LinkedIn. I've been pretty off LinkedIn for a very long time, just not really paying too much attention to it. But I will be back on LinkedIn, posting with brief posts, nothing too, nothing too crazy, but I'll be back on there because I like the organization of that platform, like how it's laid out, and it's just so smooth. But yeah, that's kind of what I would recommend for people who are like brand new, or for people who are trying to figure out, okay, I've kind of tried a little bit. I've tried to dip into sales. Why am I not? Why is it not working? Like if you haven't like gotten to the point where you're like looking and analyzing your work and trying to see where you can improve, if you haven't gotten to that phase yet, I think everything I just said for the last hour plus might might be beneficial information for you. If you're already at a point where you've analyzed and you're trying new strategies and you haven't landed on a strategy that actually works for you, that's a different topic. That's more advanced. Some of the stuff I mentioned, such as, it might be a product issue, it might be you, it might be them. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? When we're talking so broadly, who knows what's really going on? But there are ways to determine what that looks like. I don't know if I'm not gonna go into that now. I don't know if I'm gonna go into that in the future. I might, but I think it's a pretty in-depth topic. I don't know if I can come up with a comprehensive list, so I might have to come up with some scenarios or use the scenarios that I just talked about, like, if you wanted to apply to intern for Meet Kevin, or if you wanted to, slide into a DM of one of these like big YouTubers, or if you were trying to like collaborate with like a local artist or something, like with a local freelancer or a local startup. I would also say, if you can afford to do so, look into this it's not going to cost you money, it's going to cost you time, which costs you money. If you can afford to do commission based only, you might be able to get a foot in the door with some companies. It's just, you got to figure out how long you want to do that for. It's a gamble. It's basically like, you don't want your job to feel like you're playing blackjack or something. Like, you want to know how much money you're making, So, is it worth your time? Even if you did something like Uber Eats, at least when you get orders, you're gonna get some money from it. Hopefully a profit rather than just an expense. But if you do commission only work, you might make less than that. You might make more than that. It really just depends on the product, on the training, on kind of the research behind it and everything. You might be able to have people you might be able to get where you're trying to go that way. But it's not the most popular approach. I can't really recommend it fully, but it could get you experience. If you have no experience, that could be one way, especially if you're not under contract and you can leave at any time. It could be one way to kind of just get your feet wet, dip your toe in, see kind of what the process is like. See if you like it. Give it a while though, because it's hard to like when it's not smooth yet. Once it gets a little smooth and you kind of have something to say and you're making calls and you're talking to people and you kind of get into a rhythm about understanding what you're talking about when you're on the phone, it's a little smoother then. And then you can kind of determine if you hate it or like it, unless the environment's really that bad. But usually places that are commission only, they're not paying you if you don't make sales. And you want to make sure you get paid if you do make sales, or if you do book those calls. And that's what the arrangement is you just have to book the call, get someone on the calendar, and then that gets you some form of money. But it really just depends. If that's for you. That's not for everybody. It is kind of one of those methods of putting all your eggs in one basket. I wouldn't recommend that as like full-time work for a very long time. If you're not making any money after a while, you got to determine how long can you go working full time without making money and have it be worth the experience? Because that's worst case scenario. Life insurance sales, those are probably the easiest jobs to find. I don't think I can recommend those. I don't have any site that I would say that I've come across that isn't kind of like, when you look on Glassdoor, having some kind of complaints from the workers that, oh, the leads are already old leads, or I had to pay for leads, or I had to pay for extra information to be able to do my job, or I had to pay for this licensure, and wasn't getting income until I got licensed. And is it a lucrative job? I mean, people do it, people like it, but usually when you're looking for sales roles, those are probably the easiest ones to find, either commission only or insurance sales, life insurance sales. I don't think I could recommend life insurance sales at the common types of companies that you talk to that are usually commission only, and the leads are bad leads. And then there are other sites that are just kind of negative. But I'm not really going to talk too much. I'm not going to talk about those specific places. But yeah, so this is kind of more introductory, what things look like. I hope this is enjoyable to listen to. If you guys like it, I'll be posting more stuff like this. Maybe not exactly about sales, but more about some of the stuff I was saying about some of the platforms. I'm kind of getting more engaged with. I'll talk more about that and some other topics. I don't know if I'm gonna make like a series about like sales techniques and all that kind of stuff. It's just you can find that information with Trent Dressel. I honestly am not interested in making that content right now, so I might not. But I know people might want that content. I'm just not. It's not something that interests me right now. I don't want to spend my Sunday recording that, so I won't. But the information's out there. It's not hard to find. It's just more so structuring and organizing your own day and your own calendar and making sure you're making those calls and getting people on the phone. And it's a numbers game. The more people you call, the more potential for people to answer the phone. If you're not calling anybody, I remember one time I was trying to, get some copywriting gigs, and I was like, man, I wish I had customers. I did all this research, got these email lists, had some people in the background that were like, promoting my ads, and all I needed to do is call like a certain amount of people a day, call a certain amount of these mom and pops, and I probably called, or a combination of call or email, maybe 5 a month, maybe a month and a half went on, and I was like, man, it would be nice, if the momentum was down by that point, and I was like, it would be nice to have some sales from this. I think this isn't working out very well, and I kind of scrapped that for a while. I scrapped that specific project for a while. The one where I had someone kind of like promoting ads that I created and everything, and I was paying them out for that, and I was getting traction through their promotion. But as far as the phone call end on my end, I wasn't making the calls. I made 5 calls in a month and a half. I sat on that. And that was like a combination, like calls and emails. It wasn't even 5 phone calls. It was probably like 2 phone calls and 3 emails or something, because emails were more in my comfort zone. I think, but I'm pretty sure, the amount of contact attempts I made was in the single digits. And, looking back at that, I'm like, well, obviously that wasn't going to work, Obviously that's not how it goes, it's not going to work. I mean, I see it now, but that was early on. You know, it wasn't comfortable doing the outreach part. I was so in my head, and I was like, I don't want to make a mistake. How long does it take you to send an email? Once you send one or two, you kind of have the basics, but I was like, I want to make sure I got to double, triple, quadruple check these names and double, triple, quadruple check all this stuff. And it's like, dude, just send the email. Just make the call, Like at a certain point, there's only so much information you can get from researching to a point where you're gonna have to talk to somebody on the phone to see what you do and don't know. I mean, you don't want to come in completely unprepared, but you don't want to be like trying to get prepared enough where you'll feel comfortable. You're probably not going to feel comfortable because you're calling strangers that you don't know. And you're not wanting to get rejected, or you're not wanting to have a bad experience of rejection. You're not wanting to make a whole bunch of calls and feeling like, oh, that was a waste of my time. I didn't even get to the goal I needed. But if you don't make any calls, you're not going to get to the goal that you need. If you don't make enough calls, I mean, your best bet at getting to where you're trying to go is to make the calls. Be out of your head about it. Don't brood too much over negative experiences. Make the calls to maximize the potential. That's the only way to do it. That's the only way. Make the calls, leave the messages. The calls have to be quality. You can't just be like rushing through the messages and be like, oh, voicemail, blah, and like people don't understand what you're saying and it's a wasted voicemail. You want the voicemails to be valuable too, or the SMS text or whatever version of contact you can get. You want it to be worth your time. I called this person. Their phone works. That's valuable information. They didn't answer it, but it works. I called this person. At this time, maybe you might not need all the timestamps and everything, but that can matter too. Maybe you're calling at a time where they always have meetings. And maybe if you call at 3 instead of 11, maybe they're available. But if you keep calling in the same order every day or whatever, if you never switch it up at all, certain people just aren't going to answer. If you don't leave a voicemail, if you don't, there's certain ways that you can maximize the potential to at least get someone on the phone, or at least pitch, or at least leave a voicemail, at least be on their radar, at least send them that text, at least send them that email. You're on their radar. Sometimes you can get software where it shows if somebody actually looked at it, versus if they never looked at it. So you can test and see, okay, maybe this one's too long, people aren't reading it. Maybe this one's too short. Maybe this one has a weird intro and it looks like a spammy, scammy, But that's all for now. I gotta get off of here. I got some stuff I gotta get to, but I'm not gonna finish what I need to finish for Sunday if I keep recording. I got other stuff I was trying to get to, but for now, that's kind of the major thing I wanted to record about, because I mentioned it before, and I was like, yeah, this is a topic I still like. But I hope this is valuable. It's kind of a lot of information, but break it down into a strategy for yourself. We can talk about what strategies look like and stuff, but like I'm saying, I'm just not in the mood to do that right now. I'm not like in an analytic strategizing mood at the moment. I'm maybe at a later date. I'm not sure yet. Maybe not. We'll see. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening.